Hello, everyone. This is another Black Conservative. I am Ryan Bowling. Thank you all for joining me. What I want to talk about in this video is music legend, or country music legend rather, Garth Brooks, who's receiving tremendous backlash for a statement he's made towards his fans who basically are in disagreement with him for serving Bud Light, which we all know has received huge declines in profits and sales because of the deal that they made with TikTok transgender rather, whose name I cannot pronounce. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Okay, but the fans of Garth Brooks, I can't say the man's name. They are pretty upset with him choosing to serve this beer in his bar that he owns in Nashville. Now, his response to them was to call them a-hole. Now, you guys can read the article from Breitbart News in the description box below in its entirety, but essentially this article states that he called them a-holes. He's basically said, and I'm summarizing his words, an a-hole can come in and mess up everything. They can come in and cause all kinds of problems. He also suggested that, look, if you don't want to come to my bar, you can go to other bars. There are other bars that sell other kinds of beers. And to some extent, he's right about that, okay? But let me tell you this right up front. The fans were more upset with him calling them names. That's what they were upset with, okay? Forget about his mentality of inclusion. You know, I'm all about inclusion and diversity, because he states in an interview with Breitbart News that, look, I'm all about inclusion. I'm all about diversity. I'm all about, having a spirit of tolerance and love. And and I'm paraphrasing his words, as a businessman, he basically states, as a businessman, we're going to sell the beer that sells the most money. If it makes a lot of money, we're going to, as a businessman, we're going to use or sell that product. Now, here's my challenge there. For one, you state that you're going to sell a beer in your bar that you claim makes a lot of money. But has Mr. Brooks been paying attention? The sales of Bud Light has been falling drastically due to them making this type of having some kind of contract or deal with this transgender. So has he been paying attention to Bud Light sales? Okay. Are you purposely trying to push back fans that are really adore your music? Now, let me say this before I go any further into this whole idea of diversity. I do not ever remember listening to any of Garth Brooks' music. I don't remember any songs he has ever made. If I did hear any of them, they were not by choice. No offense to him or people who listen to country music, but I don't recall listen to any kind of music for Garth Brooks. Look, I'm from the 70s and 80s, and I'm mostly an 80s child. I came up with Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn. I go all the way back to, I forget the country singer's name in the 1960s. But look, that's the kind of country music that I like, and I still like. Every now and then I might listen to it, like I said, Loretta Lynn, Kenny Rogers, all that kind of stuff. That's what I grew up with. So I'm not a fan necessarily of modern country music. So I'm not going to say anything about his music. I'm not going to criticize him about his music. But what I will say is, when he had this interview about he wanted his bar to be tolerant, and he wanted to be a person that's of diversity and so forth. For example, he said in the article, in the interview, he says, I'm always behind. Everybody has their own opinions, he says. Everybody has their own opinions. They have their right to have their own opinions. And he's right. Everybody has a right to have their own opinions. He says, but I'm always behind diversity and inclusion. And I've always been that way, he says. And I'm always going to be that way. And I'm completely behind that. Now, as a business person, I can understand what he's saying on that point. If you're trying to sell a product, it doesn't matter who buys your product. Okay. At the end of the day, you're trying to make money. Okay. But as I said earlier, what I'm criticizing him on is the fact that he called his fans who disagreed with him selling Bud Light in his bar in Nashville, calling them a-holes, because now they have responded in aggravation to him, and all of a sudden he's kind of like backtracking a little bit. Wait a minute, hold on, in other words, he's basically saying, I didn't really mean it that way. No, you meant it that way. Let me say this about liberals, and I said it before and I say it again. My observations and my experience with liberals has always been their attitude. Whenever they disagree with you, whenever they don't like something that you believe in, they always have to go to the name calling. You an asshole. I said it. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. That slipped. I'm not going to even edit that out. I could edit it out, but I'm not going to even edit it out. You guys see that I'm not perfect, okay? But that's what he called him. He said, you an a-hole and all this kind of stuff. You are this, you are that. The left tends to always resort to horrible name calling. And then the next step is physical violence. I have always seen it from them. So it's no surprise to me that Mr. Brooks would go to those extreme measures to call his fans who disagree with him to selling his product in his Nashville bar. It's no surprise to me that he would go to those extremes to call them that name. And really, now if he had never said that, they probably would have never called him names. They probably wouldn't have, there probably wouldn't have been any backlash from his fans. One particular fan even said, you know what, and I'm paraphrasing it, saying the words, says, you know what, I was a big fan of yours, Mr. Brooks, but now that you've said all this, you calling us a-holes, you know what, don't go to that water hole in Nashville, that bar in water. That's basically what they said, don't go to it. You guys, look, don't patronize him. And that could have a negative effect on his business there, okay? So if he's talking about all this, well, I'm all for inclusiveness and diversity and all that, he needs to understand that a significant number of his fans, okay, could be considered conservative or at least sensible, okay? So now you're ticking them off. Now, let me say this about this whole diversity thing. He made a statement about he's all about diversity and inclusiveness. You know what's crazy about that word diversity? Because many, many decades ago, the word diversity had to do with your talents and your abilities, okay? It didn't have to do, it even has to do, let me rephrase that. It had to do with your talents and your abilities. And it went in as far as to even say, your race, okay? Maybe your race, or rather your ethnic group, okay? Okay, so if you was Asian, if you was white, if you was black, if you was African or whatever, that's what the term diversity meant, okay? Because you was bringing a different aspect of yourself to the table or to the country, okay? But now diversity has come to include people who say they're gay or transgender. Now, here's the problem with that. Diversity is more in line with the talents and abilities that you bring to the table. That's the essence of diversity. It's not merely your racial ethnicity or any of that. It's what you bring to the table. That's diversity. What abilities and talents that you have that you can bring to the table and make things better. What are you able to do? Being gay and transgender, no offense to people that are gay, but I'm trying to show a point. That's not true diversity in its essence. What are you gifted at? What are you able to do? What are you bringing to the table that can contribute to society? Like this situation with these flags, these gay flags in the White House and so forth. Now there's a big hoopla about that. They're trying to cover it up now. The White House trying to cover it up. But now they're saying, well, this is an historical event, a first-time historical event. Who the heck cares? They only make up 1% to 2% of the population in this country. Who cares? Nobody cares. Heterosexuals and regular people, they don't care. If you want to make that an historical event, that's not, who cares? And the whole concept of diversity, who really cares? You're not bringing anything to the table in America that's going to be beneficial for America. So who cares? And maybe that may be strong, harsh words, but look, that's the way I think about it. And I'm pretty sure most people in this country and most people that's watching this video feel the same way. Who really cares? Whether or not it's a first time, it's an historical. What you gonna do? Put it in the new history books? Who cares? The question is, what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the table of this country that can benefit other people? What gifts and talents and abilities that you are, and skill sets that you have that you're able to bring to the table? That's what true diversity is all about. That's what it's all about. It's not about your sex or it's not all about that. What abilities can you bring to the table? And when Mr. Brooks made that statement about, well, you know, I'm all about inclusiveness and diversity and woo, and I've always been this way, and said, man, I think your whole understanding of diversity has been twisted, because now diversity has become an identity politics situation, and Democrats are using this obviously to get more people on board so they can have more people to vote for them. The problem is that, as I said earlier, gays and transgenders and all the rest only make up 1% to 2% of the population in America. It was like 360 million people in this country. Okay. And they only make up 1% to 2% of that. What is that like? 30, 40 million? I'm just saying. But why does it seem like everywhere we go, they're everywhere? They're not. It's just that the mainstream media makes it look that way. Its movies make it look that way. The mainstream media makes it look that way. Politicians make it look that way. So people think, but it's not. It's not. So we're being inundated by this so that young people will start to become this way. And I don't have time to go into all the details about all of that. I can do that in another video. But the purpose, part of the reason for that is to try to attract a lot of younger people whose minds are fresh and vulnerable. Okay. That's one of the reasons why they're pushing it on the kids, on the young children, because the children's minds are not, their minds can be molded in anything you want it to be. Demonize the parents, X the parents out, keep them out of the schools, don't have them say anything. They don't need to know what's going on, so that we can mold these children's minds for the future, so that they'll be ready to vote for us when the future comes. But in order for them to vote for us, we got to get them to think like us. We got to get them to talk like us. We got to get them to act like us. How do we do that? We get them when they're young. Keep the parents out of it. The parents don't know what they're talking about. We got to get them when they're young. These people are sick and demented. And Mr. Garth Brooks, look, man, you have a right to sell what you want, whatever you want to sell. Okay? Look, you do what you want to do. But when you start calling people names like liberals tend to do, that's when you get backlash, bruh. That's when you get backlash. And I hope it has a negative effect. I hate to say that. I hope it has a negative effect so you would see, hey, man, I shouldn't be calling my fans a-holes. I'm just saying. So that's what I had to say about that. What do you guys think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel. God bless you all and see you again.